guys, Ben Ramsey here. So today we're going to be reviewing Scooby Apocalypse issue 1. So without further ado, let's get straight into this review. So basically, before I talk about the issue itself, I just want to address that this whole storyline that's going to be happening, I was actually surprised that it's a complete fresh reboot of the Scooby-Doo gang that we know and love. As I was picking up this comic thinking that, alright, it's obviously the Mystery Inc. gang, they've been solving mysteries for so many years, and now they're faced with the actual apocalypse where all the monsters, you know, it's no longer guys in costumes and all that, it's actually the real deal, you know, they're actual monsters out and about, and it's kind of a different take on the whole, oh right, this is just someone behind a mask. No, this is now we have to actually fight these real monsters, and, you know, there's no more mystery solving, let's just fight to survive. But no, it's a completely different reboot. It's a completely different way of how these 5 characters all get together in the first place, and it's a very interesting way of how they do that. So basically in this storyline, the comic opens up with Velma in Paris as she's talking to herself, and then she uploads this weird nanite virus into the atmosphere, and then the comic cuts to a year later where we find the characters then Fred and Daphne, where they're at this weird carnival event where Daphne and Fred are talking about Daphne's once promised career, but now it's kind of going downhill, as basically Daphne used to be a journalist, but then she quit that job and career to be the host of her own TV show, and then eventually that went down in ratings, and now her TV show about mystery solving and, you know, paranormal activity and all that basically has gone down the drain in terms of ratings, and now, you know, they're not doing so well. But then they get a mysterious call from Velma, but they don't actually know, obviously, it's Velma at this point, and yeah, and so they go to investigate it, and then we cut to the character of Shaggy, and obviously Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. Yeah, so in this, it's not really much different really. Shaggy's kind of adopted Scooby as his own, which we'll get further into later on in this review. But yeah, not really much has changed in their kind of character dynamic. They still love one another, and they still love to chow down on any chance they can get with pizza and all that. So Fred and Daphne end up meeting up with Velma in the middle of this desert place. So basically that's where Velma's headquarters is located, underneath this desert environment, where the place she works at. And it's also, this is when Shaggy and Scooby also come along for the ride as well. And this is where the real grit of the story starts to come in, where basically we're introduced to Velma's headquarters and where she works. And also this is where Shaggy works as well, but he doesn't really know much of the shady operations which is going on. As he explains, he's only a dog trainer, hence that's how he met Scooby-Doo and the rest of the dogs that the government are experimenting on. As you know, even Velma and the rest of the people who work there consider Scooby-Doo as a government experiment gone wrong, a failure basically. And this is when Shaggy argues with Velma that, like, no, he's not a failure, he can talk, and also he's my best friend, don't insult him like that. It's moments like this where you're kind of like, because, you know, if you're a fan of Scooby-Doo like me and you know the rich history between these characters, then it's kind of hard to sort of like see these characters all arguing and calling each other out and like this. You know, it kind of breaks your heart, but at the same time, it's really interesting to, you know, carry on reading this interpretation of the characters, as it's something we've never really seen before in, you know, the whole history of Scooby-Doo. And then throughout the rest of this issue, we find out from Velma that the company she's working for have developed these small little machines called nanites, which, you know, her and her company that she works for with the government, they plan to spread them across the environment, basically in the atmosphere, and then these little nanites would go inside every single living being, helping to control people's emotions and that. But then it's only until Daphne starts calling out Velma on this, saying, so basically the government wanted to mind control people, as these nanites, we find out in the issue, can help relieve stress, or they can either increase stress, so they can kind of you know, increase emotions, such as they can make people more happy, they can make people more sad, they can even make people, you know, to give them the urge to be violent and whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of like essentially the company that Velma's working for, they kind of want to make everyone in the world their own slaves. And then throughout the rest of the issue, from page to page, we get Velma explaining why she invited Fred and Daphne in the first place, was basically because she wants to expose her company's evil plans of what they plan to do with the nanites that they're dispersing in the environment. Then all of a sudden the power goes out, and basically a huge alarm starts to ring, and Velma informs the gang that she believes that the nanites are indeed being activated. Then we actually cut to a flashback of when Shaggy's first day on the job, when one of the workers there is informing him what they do here and why they employed him, as basically Shaggy has run for the position of dog trainer in this huge government facility. And then this is when Shaggy first comes into contact with his soon-to-be pal Scooby-Doo. So yeah, he sees Scooby basically getting in a fight with the other dogs, although Scooby isn't really the one who starts the fight. It's the other dogs who are much more genetically advanced than he is, because basically, as I mentioned earlier in this review, Scooby is considered a government failure by all the scientists that work there, and because basically, even though they messed with Scooby's brain and now he can talk proper English, he doesn't have the capabilities of what they plan for, hence fighting, because they want to use these dogs in military operations and so on. And sadly, Scooby-Doo doesn't have the ability in order for combat. He can only speak very little English and is not very good when it comes down to combat. This then precedes the other dogs who are much more advanced and are advanced in combat and English and etc. They all start to pounce on Scooby-Doo and basically almost killing him. But then Shaggy drops in and basically stops this fight from breaking out even further, and that's when he forms a friendship with Scooby-Doo. And it's a really nice scene, honestly. I thought it was a very touching scene as Shaggy's about to quit, as he feels the pressure of this job will be too much for him, and then it's only when Scooby-Doo says, "I love you," that all of a sudden he starts to feel really emotional towards Scooby and starts to think that, oh no wait, I can't actually leave this job, I've actually got to take care of this guy, as he understands, you know, emotions, and he's actually, you know, almost like a living person in a way. Overall, I thought this was a great issue. I've always been a fan of Scooby-Doo growing up. I actually grew up with Scooby-Doo comics as a kid, and you know, those Scooby comics were nothing like this one. They were never dark and extreme like this. But again, that's kind of what I like about this comic, how, you know, for people like me who grew up with the Scooby-Doo cartoons, movies, even comics as well, it's kind of a nice spin on the franchise. It's kind of like, right, all you kids who grew up with Scooby-Doo, here's a different kind of spin on it, and it's a bit more adult, you know, a bit more violent, but hey, this is for kind of you guys who grew up on Scooby-Doo and, you know, still like to continue reading comics even now. That's why I'm going to give this issue a solid 10 out of 10. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, that's a big rating to give an issue, but honestly, I had so much fun with this issue, and I found it so engaging with all the characters, the storyline that's happening, and it's going to be continuing on from here. Honestly, it's all great. I couldn't think of a single thing that I could think of that was wrong about this issue. Honestly, it was amazing and completely blew all my expectations, as like I said at the beginning of this video, I had no idea going in that this was going to be a fresh cut reboot of the Scooby Gang that we know and love, which makes it even more interesting because now it's a different interpretation of these characters we know and love. This isn't the same Fred or Daphne or Velma or Shaggy and Scooby-Doo that we know and love. These are different interpretations. Like, you know, they've still got all the characteristics, you know, Shaggy still says zoinks, Velma still says jinkies, Daphne still says jeepers and all that, and Scooby's like rut-row and all that. You know, it's all the same characteristics we know and love, but just a little bit more of an adult twist, you know, for us adult readers who tend to read Scooby Apocalypse. So, yeah, honestly, I love this issue. If you have not picked up Scooby Apocalypse yet, I strongly suggest go out and pick it up. It's such a good issue, and it only gets better from here on. Like I said, I'm going to be reviewing all the issues currently, which have been going on with the Scooby Apocalypse run, which DC is doing, and yeah, like I said, it only gets better from here on. So anyway guys, if you enjoyed this review, then don't forget to subscribe and like this video, stay tuned for more Scooby Apocalypse issue reviews, and comment below what you thought of the comic. So this is me, Ben Ramsey, and I will see you guys on the next video. Ta-ra!